driving around in these big trucks with signs on it saying Red Cross, giving out water to people. And
that's basically what happened here.
That's all they do. They give out water.
They put on TV where you could donate $30, and it would get the families a care pack, and the pack contained a small shampoo, a small soap, 2 washcloths. I was like, I can go to the Dollar Tree and buy a family $30 of supplies and get them everything they need for a month. And local like Kroger and Publix and local local grocery stores and chains, they were donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Red Cross. The Red Cross was literally like, people would ask for medication, like pain medication, and they would literally give them 2 Tylenol in a little baggie.
Yeah.
That was it. I mean, it was absolutely absurd. And I was telling people from the get-go, like, don't donate to the Red Cross, because I had heard stories before. Please donate to a local church. Please donate directly to the victims. Please just take in somebody. Don't donate to the Red Cross. And it came true. They were here for maybe 2 weeks, collected money, gave out some washcloths, and left.
Yeah, they do nothing. And I did the same thing with Sandy. I was going online and saying, hey, don't give to the Red Cross. Give to my friend's church, because they're the ones out there doing the work. They went door to door to door, the whole neighborhood. They saved the whole neighborhood. You know? Yeah,
the local people here, like, this was when the whole political debate was going on, and it disappeared here. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Nobody was angry over that. It disappeared. It was all about helping your neighbor. It was all about making sure your neighbor was okay and had enough to eat and had a place to lay their head. It was all about coming together and helping people. They set up donation centers where you could donate things, where people could go and get things. People could go, and people didn't want help either. People didn't want help. Like, they were like, no, we can make it on our own. We've got nothing, but we can. And people were taking other people, like, no, you're going to come here, and you're going to get some groceries, and you're going to get some clothes on your back, and you're going to take what you like. People were donating so much dog food, even so much water. I saw like flatbeds carrying water up the road. I mean, we were so thankful, and we were so grateful, and it was amazing. But it was all people. It wasn't the Red Cross at all. And FEMA came in. You could get loans through FEMA.
Yeah.
To get back on your feet. That was it. Loans.
Yeah,
so
I think they
if you want to owe the government for the rest of your life, you could use FEMA.
I think FEMA will give you some tents to stay in, too. You know?
Yeah.
They actually, because Midland Beach on Staten Island was ground zero of that hurricane. I mean, people actually died there in this little neighborhood. And FEMA was like offering people to live in tents. It was just insane. You know? Now, you said earlier that we were talking about who started this fire and what was going on in that thing, so you can get into it later. What do we know about that?
Right. Well, the results in the fire that I want to let you know, which will lead into that, 14,000 people were displaced. So even if you didn't lose a house, you still couldn't get back into Gatlinburg because they had it shut off.
Right.
So 14,000 people were trying to find places to stay around here. 2,400 structures were destroyed or damaged, and pretty much everything. Nothing was really damaged. If you had wind damage, it was damaged, but everything was burnt to the ground. So 2,400 structures burnt to the ground. 17,000 acres burnt, and there were 14 deaths, which locals questioned because there was no evacuation that night. So we have 14 deaths. They were looking and asking questions. Who was hiking on Wednesday, the 23rd? Who set these fires? There was tip lines set up. There was this weird YouTube video circling of these kids on the mountain. And they had taken like a video camera up chimney tops and were recording. And when they got down, they put this really creepy song in the background, and the song was about fire.
Oh, really?
And people were reporting that YouTube video. It came out that there were 2 boys that started the fire, and they were juveniles. Their ages changed a lot. It went from like 2 14-year-old boys to a 15 and a 17-year-old boy to a boy and a girl. Like, it changed all the time. Right now, it's a 15-year-old boy and a 17-year-old boy that supposedly started the fires in the chimney top. They were from Anderson County, and that's all we know about them because they immediately put a gag order on the whole thing because they were juveniles. They put a gag order on the whole investigation of the fires. We can't find out anything. We can't access 911 calls. We can't find out absolutely anything about the fires.
Now, who put a gag order on the results of the fight, an investigation into fighting the fire? That's a public.
I couldn't really find that out. I'm guessing it was the local judge or district attorney. But immediately, these boys are juveniles, so there's a gag order in place.
Yeah, right. For the kids, I can understand the kids, okay? Because they had a court case going on, and you want to put a gag order on it, plus they're juveniles. But since there's so much incompetence in fighting this fire, even the local media is not investigating what went on here or anything like that?
Oh, no. According to the local media, the local government did a great job because they put out the fires, and they did all that they could, and there was no way of knowing that this was going to happen that night, and it was going to happen. It was inevitable because of the winds that came.
Right.
So according to local news and a lot of the people that live here, they get online and they're like, I'm sick of seeing our government slandered. And it's like, well, people have questions and people aren't getting answers. And they're concerned. They want a fire plan so that this won't happen again, and there's no discussion of that.
Are you having a dry season now?
What?
Are you having a dry season now?
No. It's rained, but people want to feel safe, and they want, these neighborhoods that are being rebuilt in Gatlinburg, they want, a fire plan for future reference, I mean, if we are experiencing climate change, it's bound to happen again, it's not going to be wet every year. This year we're okay, thank goodness. But, yeah, they issued the gag order, and no information was released. They admitted on TV right after the fires that they had no idea how many of the fires were caused by wind and down power lines. And right there I was like, well, those boys are not going to be charged because they just admitted on live TV that they had no idea how much of the fires was caused by wind or down power lines. If they can't prove that those fires were caused by the chimney top fire, then those boys are going to be let go. That's reasonable doubt,
Yeah.
And sure enough, a few days ago, it was announced that because of the unknown winds and power lines, without the winds, it wasn't probable that the fire would have expanded into the city. And because of the jurisdiction where they set the fire in the national park and then the fire happened in the city, that the charges were going to be dropped against the boys that started the fire.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Dropped to what?
They just dropped the charges.
Oh, dropped to nothing?
Charges. Yeah.
So the kids commit arson, but because it wasn't their fault because there was other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Okay. There's obviously something going on there.
They may take it. They may be tried in federal court. They may be tried in federal.
Socks are the #1 most requested item at homeless shelters. Underwear second, and shirts are third. At Bombas, socks were first, made with comfortable details for everyday wearing. Then underwear and shirts too, all designed to perfectly fit. At Bombas, every item you purchase means you're donating an essential clothing item to someone in need. One comfortable clothing item for you, one donated to someone in need. Bombas, comfort for all. Get 20% off your purchase at bombas.com/comfy.
Socks are the #1 most requested item in homeless shelters. Underwear is the second, shirts are third. At Bombas, socks were first, made with comfortable details for everyday wearing. Then underwear and shirts too, all designed to perfectly fit. At Bombas, every item you purchase means you're donating an essential clothing item to someone in need. One comfortable clothing item for you, one donated to someone in need. Bombas, comfort for all. Get 20% off your purchase at bombas.com/comfy.
Peacock fuels your true crime obsession with exclusive new originals. John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise.
Clowns can get away with murder.
And Epstein's shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell.
She inherited Jeffrey Epstein's secrets.
Plus the most bingeable crime series, Snapped. Sign up now at peacocktv.com.
But they basically have to investigate it first with the Attorney General and all of that. So they have to go through the investigation and the evidence and everything. So they may be tried in federal court for arson, but they're not responsible for the actual death because of the high winds and the power lines.
Yeah.
Which is true. I mean, Ware's Valley, like, that was a transformer that blew. Like, that would have happened anyway. Like, Hobbly Knob, that was electrical. That would have happened anyway. But, I mean, it did spread, so it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess.
Now we were talking.
And then there was also 2 documents released. One document said that the city and the national park were able to work together on, like, crimes in the national park. And another document said that the jurisdictions were separate and that anything committed in the national park was federal and anything committed other than that was state. And they don't know which document to follow at this point. So they just drop the charges.
We were talking earlier off the air, right, about how you said that there's been other incidences down there of the local news media covering things up in order not to affect the tourism.
Yeah, they don't really cover things up. They just don't report on stuff.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, and one of them, you said there was a couple of teens that went missing.
Yeah, they're actually guys in their 20s, and I found it odd because this spring, I'd been following some of the smiley face killer missing guys, and one of them was from Pittsburgh, and of course I'm from Pennsylvania, and I had a lot of people from Pennsylvania sharing this picture and trying to find this guy. And so I'm sitting here in the spring, maybe April here, and I see there's 2 guys here that are in their 20s and they're missing. So I share them, and I sent one to William Ramsey, and he's like, okay, thanks. And a couple of days later, I went back to check on it, and the link was gone. Like, the link of the missing person was gone.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, he's missing. Did they find him? So I start researching, like, missing people, Sevierville, Tennessee, Sevier County, nothing. So then a few months later, I get on Facebook, and like a month ago, and my friend that works for the fire department, she shared it again. And she was like, he's still missing. And he had been missing since, like, October and November. So I'm like, is this somebody that died in the fires that nobody is reporting on? That they don't want to admit that there was another death? Or is he really missing? Like, did he leave? What's going on?
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, the number, you came up with the number 14. Now, did that number fluctuate? Was it much higher at once and then get lower? Or what?
At first, there were hundreds of missing people.
Right.
And then they started the death count, and it was low at first. It was like 5, 6, and then it jumped to 11, and then it jumped to 14. And there's actually 15 because there was a guy that suffered like a stroke during the fires, and then he died a couple weeks later. But they don't count him.
Right.
They just say 14.
Okay, but then you were mentioning too that there's a lot of undocumented aliens that are in town there, and there's no.
Yeah, we have a really high population of undocumented people that live here, and I'm fine with it because they work really hard and they do jobs here that nobody else will do. But they live in hotels, and they all live together in a room, and they don't have vehicles, and they don't, like, maybe one person will have a vehicle and they'll all ride together, or they'll walk to work, or they'll ride the trolley, and they keep to themselves. And there were whole hotels that people lived in Gatlinburg that burnt. Like, people live in hotels here because there's no affordable housing before the fires, and everything burnt. So one of the things I did personally was a lot of the regular, like, local churches were overwhelmed. So I got online and researched, and I found a Hispanic church to donate to, because I wanted to make sure that Hispanic people weren't like thrown under the bus or ignored, or I wanted to make sure they had what they needed. And I donated to their church, and they seemed to be kind of doing okay, but none of them would really talk about it. So I don't know. And a lot of Hispanic people were scared to go to the donation centers, because even if you're Hispanic and you're here legally, if you left your ID that night in the room, which a lot of people did, a lot of people lost their IDs in the fire, you don't have proof. And so they were afraid of being deported. And so they went and go get help. There were Facebook posts where people were like, there's a Hispanic mother and her 3-year-old, in a car, living in a car, and it's cold out, and we need to help them, because they were afraid of being deported. So I can't imagine that every Hispanic person that was undocumented got out that night of those fires. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
The people that were reported that died, there was a mother and 2 daughters that died. The husband and son heard their neighborhood was on fire, and they left to go see what was going on, because it was just a rumor at that point. And when he got back, so he went to go back to get them to leave, and their house was already engulfed in flames. So he lost his wife and his 2 daughters. There was a couple from Canada that passed away. There was a family that was here on vacation, and they had 2 or 3 sons, and the sons were in critical condition, but the parents passed away. There was a local preacher that was trying to let the outside of his house down, and he died of smoke inhalation and passed away. There was another middle-aged man that passed away, another lady. I mean, these people, they were trying to get out. They were trying to save what they had, and they were trying to escape. And 2 boys ran through flames and left their parents, because their parents knew they couldn't make it, and they wanted their sons to survive. And they ran through flames, and they ended up in critical condition at UT for weeks, for months. And I believe they're okay now, but of course they're traumatized from the whole thing. They left their parents to die in flames.
Now, and it seems like all these people too, the pattern with all these recorded deaths here, they all had families. They were all, people, a preacher, people looking for them. Right. And it wouldn't be beyond, because you mentioned also too a couple that died in a hot tub up there. And this had nothing to do with the fire, but describe that.
One day I got up and I saw a report that an elderly couple was visiting on vacation, and they were found deceased in a hot tub. And then they announced that they died of natural causes. So I was just like, how does that happen? If I was the daughter of an elderly couple and I got a phone call saying that your parents were found in a hot tub together deceased, but it was natural causes, I wouldn't just be like, oh, okay, let's go about my day. I would be asking questions. But things like that get reported on, and then they disappear forever, and nobody asks questions.
Right, so if you can have a medical examiner's office, coming up with a cause of death like that, the same office then would be in charge of counting the number of dead people in this fire, yeah. So
right.
Now, what about, is it still on the news now, like all the time? Is this like a big story down there?
This past week, whenever it was announced that the charges were dropped, It was really big. People were really mad, but I knew it was coming, because I was like, well, they admitted on live TV that they didn't know how many of the fires were caused by electrical problems. So, that right there, that's going to let them off. I believe they should still be charged for arson for starting a fire in the national park, especially during a burn ban. But there's no way of proving, what fires came from the chimney top fires and what fires were electrical, because it was all one big inferno by the end of the night, But that hit the news, and some people were mad, and some people were like me. The people that went through it and had to escape were kind of like me, where they knew that they could see the power lines falling and the transformers igniting the leaks, so they knew there was more to it than the initial first fire.
Right. Now,
but there also should have been an evacuation that day if they knew those winds were coming, which they did know those winds were coming.
Now, you've been contacting me saying, okay, you want me to interview this guy and that guy and all these different people who have information they want to share. Now, what's the story with these people? What do they have to contribute?
A guy named Michael, he was the first video we saw after the night of the fires. And him and his buddy were outside, and they were just recording the sky, the red sky. And all of a sudden the fire was in their backyard. So they got their dog and they jumped in the car, and they took a YouTube video trying to escape. And they went one way and they ran into fire, so they had to turn around, and there were trees down. And so they turned around again and decided to drive through the fire.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And it has language in it, of course, because they're afraid for their lives. But they saw people on their way down on the side of the road that had died from smoke inhalation trying to escape. And they know that more than 14 people died, but nobody will listen. Everybody's just, these are conspiracy people.
Right.
It's not true. They're trying to give our government a bad name. But they saw it that night.
Now, when they were driving, they were videotaping, right? Did they get videos of some of these people at the side of the road?
I don't think, because they were just driving through flames,
right.
And it was like, you looked out the window, because you can kind of see, like, in some of the video, there's cars sitting on the side of the road.
Right.
That are abandoned. And that was all over. Like, afterwards, you could see on the news there were cars abandoned everywhere. So if there were cars abandoned, what did these people do? Did they run on foot to the bottom of the mountain? Like, did they get in the car with somebody else? What happened to them?
Now, and what happened to those cars? Were the cars later towed away? Did the people come back and get them? Do we know what happened to the cars?
I mean, they were burnt completely, so they were just taken off.
All right. Now, these people, Michael and his friend, how many people do they claim that they saw at the side of the road, like numbers-wise?
I'm thinking 2, but I'm not positive on that.
Okay.
Because there have been so many different people and escape stories. There was another man that was going down a different mountain. He was in a truck, and he had a chainsaw, and he was stopping and sawing logs to get down the mountain.
Wow.
Because even if there was fire on both sides of the road, but then, like, a log would fall across the road. So what do you do? Like, he had a chainsaw, and he was sawing. He swears that he saw a little girl in a car, and she was deceased. But there was only 2 little girls reported dead, and they were part of a family that were in a cabin. So he swears to this day, and he has a YouTube video out too of, he's driving down the mountain, and his truck tires, he had to drive over things that he wasn't supposed to, obviously. He was taking care of a lady, and she was, on oxygen, and he was trying to get her out of there. And, but there are people that saw things that still to this day don't add up to what they're actually reporting. And when people ask questions about it, they get just called names. They get called liars. They get accused of making things up. But, I was here that night, and I saw how bad it was. And I can't imagine that only 14 people died. I hope only 14 people died. I feel awful for those 14 people that died. But I just don't see it. It doesn't add up.
What about Dollywood? Was Dollywood damaged at all?
There is a fire. Dollywood has the Dreamore Resort, and then there's Splash Country, and then there's Dollywood, and they're all on a piece of property that kind of connect. There was a fire behind the Dreamore Resort. You can get online and see pictures of it. If you just look up Dreamore Resort fire, there's a picture of the resort, and everything behind it's on fire. And the fire started to creep into the back of Dollywood, but they somehow got it out, or the rain had started. I'm not sure. But it had went up, which Dollywood's actually in Pigeon Forge, and it had went up Dollywood Lane, and we're catching different houses and some trees on fire, and they were trying to protect Dollywood. And downtown Gatlinburg was saved. They did flood downtown Gatlinburg with the water to save it. So there still is a downtown Gatlinburg. You can still come to downtown Gatlinburg and go to all the shops, and then you can go hiking in the mountains. It's just everything around it that got burnt.
So now, what's happened to the local economy now? A lot of these hotels are shut down and motels. It's really bad right now?
It was awful.
Really?
Yeah. What happened was, of course, this was after Black Friday weekend, the biggest, shopping weekend of the year. And the people weren't coming here to shop. Tourists weren't coming here to shop. I mean, Gatlinburg was shut down for a week. Nobody could get in it. So everybody's displaced from Gatlinburg. Some hotels were giving people free nights. Some hotels were comping nights at the time being, right after the fires, just to give people a place to sleep. But basically, people had lost everything. So people weren't, even if you didn't lose anything, you weren't out Christmas shopping. You were out trying to buy donations or help a family with Christmas, or you were helping other people. You weren't going to Walmart and buying flat screen TVs and giving yourself a big Christmas. You just weren't. You were just helping people and giving what you like. Let's get these kids socks. Let's get these kids underwear. Mm-hmm. Let's get them the basic needs. Let's get them some toys for Christmas. A lot of people had started Christmas shopping and everything burnt, and they didn't have a Christmas to give their kids. So instantly the economy here tightened up. The tourists weren't coming in, and when the tourists don't come in, the locals aren't making money. The locals that had things survive and could go back to work and still have jobs were helping the people who lost everything. Even if you lived and worked in Gatlinburg and you didn't lose anything, you still didn't have work for a week of the fire. So you had a whole week in December where you didn't have any work because Gatlinburg was shut down. And then when you did go back to work, you had to go into your place of work and clean up debris and clean up rotten food and ashes and soot off of everything. So the economy here was pretty bad in December. We didn't have the big December month we always have. We didn't have all the tours that we always have. School was out for a few days. There's no housing here already. And then after the fires, a lot of people resorted to living in hotels. You're living in hotels and you have kids. You have a mini fridge and a microwave. You can't cook there. You can't cook meals. You can't keep groceries in a mini fridge for a family of 5. So you're going to have to eat your meals out. That's expensive. It's expensive here to eat out. If you go to McDonald's, it's $8 for a number one. We have tourist town prices, so it's expensive. Dolly Parton decided that she was going to give each family $1,000 a month that was affected by the fires to stay on their feet. And that was the saving grace. That was the absolute saving grace for people. If that wouldn't have happened, I don't know what would have happened. She gave families $1,000 a month, and that was at least enough to keep a roof over their head. A lot of people think, $1,000 a month, that's a lot of money. But if you have to live in a hotel, hotels here cost $200 to $250 a week. That's almost all of your $1,000. And like I said, you're eating every single meal out because you're not going to be able to cook for your family in a hotel.
Right, but wait a second.
Lives out a lot.
I can go down there for vacation and stay in a hotel for $250 for a week?
Well, no, you have to be local and desperate.
Oh, okay.
For a place to live.
One of those places. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
If you're on vacation, you're going to pay like at least $500 for a week. Depending on.
Even $500 a week is a great deal.
It is, but that's because the hotels here used to be the.
So, you know what Mike said about getting LASIK at LASIK Plus? That it was the best decision he's ever made.
Oh, yeah.
And Tara? She said from the moment she arrived for her consultation, she got the red carpet treatment. And Kevin? He said that the ride home lasted longer than the actual procedure. And Kendra said...
Oh, we don't know any Kendras.
I'm reading reviews online. LASIK Plus has thousands of 5-star reviews.
Thousands?
Uh-huh. Okay, where was I? Oh, so Kendra said...
LASIK Plus has received more 5-star reviews online nationally than anyone else. So, if you're ready for a life of new vision, schedule today. Right now at LASIK Plus, we're offering 20% off LASIK with our latest Wavelight laser when treated in December. Visit mylasicoffer.com. LASIK Plus, the patient's choice for LASIK. Must mention this promotion and be treated in December of 2021 to qualify. 20% off standard price of Wavelight procedure cannot be combined with any other offers. Go to mylasicoffer.com for details.
Now is the best time to start working at Amazon. They're offering sign-on bonuses up to $3,000 and hourly pay up to $22 per hour. You'll bring home a great weekly paycheck, and many jobs come with benefits that start on your first day. That's higher pay, sign-on bonuses, benefits day one. And you'll be part of a safe and inclusive workplace ranked among the best in the world. Go to amazon.com/apply to start your job search today. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
Mail's here. It's 2 minutes later than yesterday. And because you know it's 6 minutes earlier than the day before, you decided it was time to get back to work. Let's job it up. At CareerBuilder, we're ready to help at every stage of your search. Build a resume, get industry tips and advice, and apply to multiple jobs in just one click. Get started now at CareerBuilder.com.
Big place where people stayed when they came on vacation, but then they started building all these chalets and cabin rentals.
Right.
So families come down and rent those. So there's a lot of empty spaces in a hotel, and they started renting them out for people to live in.
Okay.
Because you don't have to have your first month's deposit. You don't have to have your last month's deposit, and you don't have to have deposits for utilities. So a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck can just pay $250 week to week and at least have a place to live.
Now, I got you. We have those two here. There's called budget suites and Siegel suites. Where these weekly rental hotels.
Exactly.
Now, we're running out of time, though. Is there anything I've forgotten to ask you or something you want to add to the story?
Not really. I'm hoping to get some other people to speak out against this. I know some people have GoFundMe set up and are doing, like, drives for school supplies this year and things like that, but I'm not sure what's going on with that right now. We're just trying to, like, the small group of people that are sticking together and talking out about how the fire wasn't handled efficiently and are trying to get answers to the questions that everybody has. They're kind of banding together and asking questions, and they're catching a lot of slack for it. And it's not easy and it's not fun, but at least they're speaking out. At least there's a small group of people speaking out. But it was just a terrifying night, and it shouldn't have been that bad. They should have had an evacuation. They should have had everybody out of Gatlinburg by 1 o'clock that day. There should have been no deaths from that at all.
Now, since this happened, do you have a plan now, like a one of those go bags they call them, like a little emergency bag to, in case something else happens again, you do flashlights and stuff. I mean, masks.
Yeah, each family has taken their own precautions. We share things on Facebook that's like, this is how to get your, clear the debris around your house.
Right.
Things like that, and we share that locally. And we have, the beginning of the first week in May, there was a fire out at the end of my road, and I was in panic mode again because it was supposed to get windy and it was supposed to storm, and they actually put together a wildland team to fight that fire, and they got it out right away. So I was really proud of them. I was like, thank you guys. you helped, helped my anxiety. But I mean, we do things constantly. Okay. Everybody's always on alert here now. Everything, every weather, every storm, everything. Everybody's on alert. Everybody's ready to go and help people. So that's one good thing that came out of this. We're all prepared now.
Oh, yeah, well, thank God for that. And Cody, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I know it's difficult to talk about this. I really appreciate it. And it's an important topic. So thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank God you came out. Yeah, I was worried about you. Thank God you came out of this safe and sound. And your friend, I don't want to mention your friend, too, because then people put the two names together. They'll figure out who you are. That
was another part. You came home and you still had a house and you felt guilty. You felt bad that you still had a house and other people didn't. So you just, you donated and you helped people and you did what you could. And I found the Hispanic church, and it brought me so much joy to help with people.
Yeah, they say survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt is a...
Yeah, it's rough. I still have it when I hear stories, so definitely.
Well, okay, and what you do is, too, send me all the links to the GoFundMes, and we'll put it up on the YouTube channel and on the Spreaker comments and stuff like that. And I'll post them on my Facebook, too, to get some support for you down there.
Thank you so much.
Cody, thank you so much, okay? Anything new comes up, just give me a call. We'll put you right back on the air.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, they had Cody, a really, really, wonderful woman and her friend. It's just, I've never talked to her for this long. We've talked off the air a couple of times. Just such a wonderful woman, mom, and, in a small town, Bernie supporter, and her friends. They're really cool people, and really do appreciate that because I know how stressful it can be to go in the air and talk about these kinds of things. And when you've been through a trauma, like right now, I know she's sitting there right now trying to, because after I do a show, I know how it feels. She's sitting there right now trying to wind down from describing this whole trauma, and it really can be difficult. So thank you so much about this fire down there in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, all these kind of crazy towns. But I'm going to take a trip down there, man. It sounds like a fun place to go. Put a little money in the economy, and if I can get a hotel room for $500 for a week, I'll do it. We're going to be spending $200 for a night in California this week. Anyway, thank you so much. Keep in mind, if you like what you hear on the show, you go to OppermanReport.com. We have a members section with a lot of new content up there. Just did a show. I'm working on a show coming up with the Red Wemette about the murder of Marylin Monroe. Might be coming up next after this, so sit tight. And who knows what will come on. Who knows? The shadow knows what's going to be coming on after this. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and we are rejoined, I should say, by an old guest. We've had him on before, Red Wemette. He's the author of the book Nobody Cares and What I Did About It, and we did a previous show about this. You can check it out. You can Google it on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart and find that show. We did a full, I think, 2 hours with Red. But Red's back to tell us a fascinating story. He put up a YouTube video. He does a YouTube channel. And he tells these stories. He sits in his chair and he tells these stories. And this is one about the murder of Marylin Monroe. And that's one of the most popular topics we've ever had on the show here. So I wanted to get Red on the show. He's nice enough to do it for me here on 4th of July. So, Red, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Ed.
Hey, remind the audience, who is Red Wemette?
I was, according to Gary Jenkins, I was a contract agent, but I was an informant for the FBI.
Because you're organized crime connections there in Chicago, right?
That's correct.
Gotcha. And so pretty much a life of crime, right?
Yeah, I started working with the FBI. I was tending bar, and I started working with the FBI in August of 1971. It was at my request. I approached them.
Right.
We met at the Lincoln Park Zoo. It was kind of cool work.
And is that why you were wearing that fur coat in that picture? Because you went to the zoo?
No, that was actually taken at Woodfield Mall in 1979.
Listen,
everybody. 78, I think.
Everybody got to check out Red Wemette. He got the book. Nobody Cares and What I Did About It. But he's got a YouTube channel. He's on Facebook too. A lot of charming stuff. A lot of his YouTube channel, he just sits here, he tells these old stories. So now, you told this story about the murder of Marylin Monroe. Take us through that.
Well, as a child, I really didn't pay much attention to Marylin Monroe. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I didn't pay much attention to Marylin Monroe. Yes, her name came up here or there, but I never really knew much about it, except I thought she died of an overdose or whatever, killed herself. And then later on, I was taping Frank Schweiss. And while I was taping him, he was talking about different homicides that he committed. Paul Gonski. I knew about Patsy Riccardi because he told me he was going to do it before he did it. The FBI just never responded. There was nobody in the office. So this particular one, when he was talking about it, was his girlfriend in 1962. Her name was Eugenia Pappas. And Eugenia Pappas was 18 years old. He was, I don't know how old he was then, but he was in his 30s. He was still married to Nora at the time, his wife. But what happened was he went out to California, and during the conversation, I was doing all the listening, not really talking much like I am now. But he said his girlfriend, he had to kill her, or she had to have an accident. And so he looked kind of, I don't know, he started out in space when he did it, when he told me about it. So I listened, and I found out that he was actually picked up by, I believe Dick Kane was the chief of detectives at the time, and they closed the case on his girlfriend. But Frank was known as a feared hitman and a very dangerous man. He was Milwaukee Phil's bodyguard. He lived right next door to Phil Alderisio in North Riverside, at any rate, a suburb of Chicago. And he was known to be quite good at what he did, you know. But at any rate, as he told me the story, it led to why, and it turns out that he had told her when he shouldn't have. He was talking to her. She wanted to know where he went when he was out of town, and he had told her that he was out of town. He had a job to do, and evidently he was trying to impress her or something like that. And when it got back to Phil Alderisio, he said, she's got it all. And the story was that he went out to, on the behest of Phil, Milwaukee Phil, and he was told by, this is the story I heard from Frank, okay? He was told by Mr. Giancana, Sam Giancana, to, Phil was, to take care of the matter, you know, go back and take care of it. But there was something that the order came down, and he was dispatched to go out and pose as a tile setter, and he brought another man with him. She had just come back from Mexico, and she had bought some terracotta tile down in Mexico. And Frank really liked laying tile. I used to see him lay tile just about every place. And I always wondered, and it just kind of fit in my head, but I never paid much attention to it. We knew we were never going to get him on a murder charge on a federal thing, any of the murders that he discussed, because they were state crimes. It wasn't a conspiracy or anything like that where they could drag people into it. So we got him for the Hobbs Act. But as far as extorting me, but as it goes along, he brought up some things that I didn't even know about, like suppositories and stuff like that with chloral hydrate.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. A couple of things. Now, Frank Schweiss, all the times you were talking to him and you were friends with him, did you ever know him to lie to you and make up stories?
Only once. And I'm not sure of that one because the FBI didn't follow up on it. But he called Pete Chiavarelli from my home phone and said, "Yeah, is Petey there? This is Frank." And he wanted a sheriff to help evict a tenant of mine. And he said, "Don't worry, the sheriff will be there." And so he said, "I'm meeting with him." And later on, they went looking for the sheriff, and they couldn't find him. He never showed up at the meeting. And Frank was mad, and he called he called Pete Chevrolet. He says, yeah, you remember that guy I told you to get out by me? And he says, well, he used a lot of foul language. But he said, the guy didn't show up. But he said, tell him when I get a hold of him, I'm going to kick his up into his brains, you know.
Okay.
In the groin. And he slammed the phone down. In those days, he wasn't using a cell phone. It was just a desk phone.
Sure.
So it was kind of different.
Now, and you said you were taping him.
That's the only lie I ever caught him. And I really didn't catch him in a lie on that one. It's unconfirmed.
Right.
As far as him calling Pete Chevrolet, that's confirmed. As far as him calling Ferriola off my telephone, that was confirmed.
And this conversation you had with him where he's talking about killing his 18-year-old girlfriend, and then the reason why is because he had to go to California to kill Monroe. Do you have that on tape?
He told her afterwards. He told her afterwards, after he came back.
Right, but this is what he told you, though, that the reason why he had to kill her is because she knew about him killing Monroe.
Right.
Right. Now, you have that on tape? You were taping him at the time?
Pardon me?
You were taping that conversation?
Yes, the tapes are rolling.
And so the FBI has that tape?
I don't know if they do. They've never released anything but excerpts of the trial. They won't release any transcripts. They won't release anything about the entirety. There's a lot of hours and hours of conversation that had nothing to do with the business, you know, of what they were doing.
Right.
So they only let out excerpts. Now, I did talk to Jeff Cohn, who wrote a book, and he told me that he never got the copy.
Get the perfect gifts for pets and pet lovers at Chewy. Save on presents for your pets, like food, toys, and treats. And for friends and family, we have e-gift cards to show how much you care. Find great gifts at great prices. Visit Chewy.com today.
We stand for giving back to our community.
We stand for access to food for everyone who needs it.
We stand for a better future for all children.
We stand for ending hunger.
Through your support, Feeding Tampa Bay is transforming the well-being of our region today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. Stand with us.
Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free. Upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
These are the tapes, but when he went, he got a copy of my file, and he said everything was redacted. Everything. He said it read like a broken cell phone call, basically.
Now, how many trials have you testified in?
Oh, my goodness. 2 federal and 3 state.
Five trials you've testified in as a witness. Now, are any possibility that you still may be called to testify now?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it.
All right. So,
I mean, I can't see where the government would want me. Most of the people are dead now.
Right. And now, is there any case too that any possibility that because what I'm trying to say is that if someone who's in prison right now, based on your testimony, if they were to hear this story about Marylin Monroe and say, "Oh man, Red is making that up," I know he's he's a confirmed liar. I want a new trial. You know what I'm trying to say?
That's not the case, and even if it were the case, I don't know why. You know, maybe you could tell me that. Why do you think it theorized that they covered it up all these years?
That's a good question too. It is a fascinating story. The whole Marylin Monroe murder.
I mean, everybody knows it's a cover-up.
Yeah,
I
right.
saw it on the channel where Autopsy, where this doctor talks about it. Now all of a sudden they mention chlorohydrate. Well, back in the old days, it wasn't even on her autopsy report. It said barbiturates.
Right. Now
it says stomach contents only.
What did Frank Schweiss tell you how they did it?
He said it was a suppositories, anally.
What year did he tell you that?
That was in, let me make sure, 1987.
1987, okay. And I don't think the suppository theory has come out until recently, because there are people with a theory about suppositories now coming out.
Well, aside from that, Milo Spallegro wrote the book, and I read his book, Crypt 33. He had a co-author, Milo's dead now, but he was a detective on that case from L.A.
Oh, really?
And he followed it after she died, or after she was killed, and after he left the department, he became a PI, and he followed that case to write the book. Well, I read the book, and I almost had a heart attack because it was almost word for word. And I called him, and I spoke to him, and he told me at the time, Frank Joyce was locked up with no bond. The first time he'd ever been locked up with no bond in his life. He always made bond. And then all of a sudden his people involved would disappear or get murdered or something like that, and they didn't have a case.
Right.
But when I was talking to him, he was on no bond, but I was kind of concerned about other people that were associated with him, et cetera, et cetera. So when I talked to Milo, I read the thing, and it's almost word for word. And it's Eugenia Pappas's brother went out to L.A. and did a story with Milo. That's how the book was written, basically from that. So Milo asked me at the time, he said, would you be willing to, he offered me a lot of money. He said, would you be willing to go on book signings with me and authenticate this? And I said, are you kidding me? I said, I'm not doing that. I said, I still have to go to court. I still have to testify against Weiss. And so it didn't happen. I let it go. And then years later, when I wrote my book, nobody cares what I did about it. What happened was I looked at it and said, okay, I can't really authenticate this thing. There's no way to do it, and I don't want to get in a jam over it. So I'm not going to write it in the book. And not only that, my publisher, John Paul Owls, at the time, Owls Publishing, he edited everything I did. So a lot of the things that I wanted to write about, he said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Now he's no longer my publisher, and I may do something else in my second book.
Now, your FBI handlers, right, when you were going in and working with the DA's office and testifying on these cases, working these cases and stuff like that, you became friendly with these guys, right?
One of them I was not friends with at all. I was passed off to a handler that I didn't get along with.
Okay.
And there's many reasons. I called him before I wrote the book and asked him, and I said, is there any problem with this? And he said, well, you see things different than I do. And I said, well, give me some retractions, or, just send me an email telling me what you like. Because I sent him a copy of the transcript. And he said, I just see things different than you do. And I said, what do you mean? And that's Scott Jennings. I said, what do you mean, Scott? And he said, he's a PI now. And anyway, he said, your memory's better than mine. He said, just let it go as is. Goodbye. And he hung up.
Okay. Now, but did you ever contact any of these old handlers or prosecutors and stuff like that you worked with so closely and say, hey, whatever happened with the Marylin Monroe? How come you guys didn't pursue that?
No, but what we did, there's a guy by the name of Zach Shelton. And Zach contacted me through Paul Pompian, who's deceased now. He died on New Year's Day a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago. Paul was working on Family Secrets movie. He was writing with Nicholas Pileggi.
Okay.
Is it?
Sure.
And he was working on that, and he asked me if I'd be a technical advisor. We were working on that thing. And so there are different things that came up, that over the time where I did talk to other agents. All of a sudden, this guy, Zach Shelton, called me. I didn't even know who he was. And then John Osborne called me, my original handler. And he had been moved, after he made a good case, they moved him to his hometown, which was Pittsburgh. And he worked on Mickey Scarfo out there.
Okay.
And he passed me off to Hank Schmidt, and Hank worked with me for a while. But when I got passed off on this wire deal, it was to somebody. The guy wasn't from the Mob Squad. He wasn't from downtown. He was at a local satellite. And the language and everything else, he was very critical of me. He didn't like some of the things I said or people that I hung around with, and I had to. I mean, the guy was he didn't understand it. It wasn't his element. He was probably better at catching bank robbers than doing what he was doing.
But all these FBI
anyway,
guys,
we had a lot of arguments. Him and I had a lot of arguments. As a matter of fact, I think I wrote about in the book that one time I packed up in the middle of the night and I called the bureau, and I said, patch me through to his home. And I did. I patched him through the house. They patched me through, and I said, meet me at the North RA, which was in Arlington Heights at the time. And I packed up all the equipment and pulled it all out of the apartment, yanked everything that I could out. Right. And Paul Peanut Spansco went with me. And we brought it out there, and Scott was in a T-shirt. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and looked like he just got out of bed. So we loaded it in his car, and I said, that's it. I'm through with you people. I'm through with you all together. And the next day I get up, and his supervisor, Jim Bogner, had called me. And he said, hey, how's it going? And I said, not well. And I told him what had happened. And he said, well, we have to sit down and talk. And I said, no, there's nothing to talk about. I'm through. I won't deal with a liar like him. He's just a liar. I won't deal with him. He lied to me too many times. And I said, not only that, I just don't like the guy. I can't deal with him. I can't work with him, period. And so he said, well, you have to. And I said, I don't have to do anything. I'm not employed by you. This is a gift. I mean, I don't have to do it. So Jim Bogner came out to see me. And actually, before he came out, he had Hank call me. Hank had been transferred to the airport, O'Hare Airport at the time. And Hank called me, and he said, you better get your act together, otherwise I'm going to have to come and straighten you out. That was Hank Schmidt.
Well, but Red, before we get too far into the story, my question is, though, is any of these FBI agents, can any of them are alive, can confirm this conversation with you and Frank Schweiss?
I would imagine there are a lot of them, but I don't know who you'd start with. I'm sure people in Washington knew. I don't know how many are alive anymore. A lot of these people are passed on. John Osborne's dead.
Are there any that you're still friends with that could possibly confirm it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I did Family Secrets, the younger guys that were there was Chris Stackey, who's a great guy, and Ted McNamara. They came down and saw me, and I'll tell you what, it's a new FBI now. It's totally different.
So okay,
it's not like when J. Edgar Hoover was alive, or even just in the 80s or 70s. It's a whole different ballgame. These guys are first class. They did everything right.
So the story
and
that Frank...
as far as other questions that I've asked them in the past, they said we'd have to go look. We don't know.
Right.
And a lot of them don't know things, because they got their own lives they live.
So the story that Frank Schweiss tells you is that Sam Giancana gives the order to Milwaukee Phil, who
and Phil gave it to him,
to Frank Schweiss. And Tony Spilatro from Vegas. Tony Spilatro from Vegas flew out to California.
But at that time, Tony was in Chicago in '62.
Okay, that's when Tony was still in Chicago. Gotcha. Now, Tony, for people listening to the show, that's from the movie Casino. Joe Pesci played Tony Spilatro, Tony the Ant here in the movie Casino. And we had Frank Collada on the show and all that kind of stuff, so just for the audience. So now has anybody ever mentioned, Frank Schweiss, you said, came up in the book Crypt 33, correct?
Yes, it is. It's in the Crypt 33. It's the name of the book.
Right, and Frank Schweiss...
His co-author re-released the book, and she changed some things around. I talked to her.
Right, but now Frank Schweiss is mentioned in that book?
on Facebook.
Right, Frank Schweiss is mentioned in that book?
Oh, yeah.
And how does she portray him involved in this?
The story is really being told by Eugenia Pappas' brother.
Right.
He was a Chicago police officer at the time, and he knew Frank did it, but he couldn't do anything to do anything about it. They couldn't arrest him.
Now, before this, though, has anybody mentioned Tony Spilatro being involved in this?
No, I never heard that before.
Okay, that's interesting.
Only from Frank. I mean, I've never heard that before, ever.
Let me ask you a question. A guy like
Frank...
Frank...
At that time, him and Tony were getting along quite well, and they were with the same crew.
Let me ask you a question now, because Frank Collada...
I met them both at the same place, American Bonding.
Now, Frank Collada, right? He's running around. He's doing all these books. He's doing all these appearances. He's trying to make money. Now, why wouldn't he, if he had information about this, or maybe...
I don't know. I was very surprised when he released some statements that they were closer. He was closer to Tony, and he knew everything.
Yeah.
I was very surprised on that. But then again, I think I've told you before, or maybe it was somebody else in an interview, I really don't think he has a lot of credibility on a lot of different matters. Mitch Mars and I went into it when Mitch was alive, and Mr. Funk and John Scully, we all decided, or I decided, that I would not testify at Family Secrets if Frank Collada showed up, because they said he was going to be a witness there. And I said, if he testifies, I'm not coming. And I was there, and they had him on the witness list, and it was on TV, and I said, forget it, guys. I'm out of here. I'm gone. So he never testified at Family Secrets.
Wait, what is Family Secrets? I thought it was a movie or something.
No, Family Secrets was the trial in Chicago where there were actually 5 people. The rest of them all pled out. But they found out more murders that happened. Calabrese, Frank Calabrese Jr. wrote a book about it. And it was about a lot of different murders were solved. The Seaford murder with Danny Seaford, that was solved. Joey Lombardo was convicted on that one. Frank was not at the trial because he had cancer. And they said he was not healthy enough to stand trial. So the judge let him go, and he never did go to trial for any of this stuff because he had cancer. The only trial we got him on was the extortion thing with me. It was kind of like a Al Capone type deal where you knew the guy killed people, but guess what? They got him on income tax evasion.
Now, back to this Marylin Monroe story. After you mentioned to me off the air that some people kind of came to you after you started talking about this and tried to intimidate you about talking about it?
Yes. No, they didn't say this particular subject. They asked me if I was going to reveal any secrets, anything that, I guess they didn't want it to be public. But there's a lot of different things I know that I haven't made public.
And you think they were alluding
to this particular one? I really don't. You're the guy to talk to me. So,
yeah, I know. I'm very persistent. Right? I can be very persistent. I can track a guy down on 4th of July and get him to come on the air and tell me a story. But I really appreciate it.
Because you're good at what you do, man.
Thank you, Fred. Red. Now, did any of these people ever mention other factors besides Giancana wanting the murder, like the Kennedys wanting the murder, or the FBI or the CIA wanting the murder?
Only information I found out from other people in the book Crypt 33 also.
Okay.
Because I really didn't know anything. I didn't pay much attention to it. It was just like another one of his accidents, Paul Gonski or what's his name, Patsy Ricciardi. He told me he was going to whack him. He said, as a matter of fact, the government tapings have played over and over. It's on YouTube where he said to me, I got to go out of town. I got to make a hit. And that's why it was held without bond.
Right. Now, besides Crypt 33, have you read any other books about them or heard any of the other theories about Marylin Monroe?
Yes, I have. There was somebody, when I posted the video, there's somebody, which, by the way, it's got like, I don't know, 22,000 views on it.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. Somebody posted a deathbed statement from a CIA operative that used to murder people. And he was on his deathbed. He had oxygen going to his nose, etc. But he was dying. I think it was cancer. I'm not sure. But at any rate, they posted that and say, well, he gave a deathbed confession that he killed Marylin Monroe. So, you're full of it. And so I said, all I'm telling you, I wasn't there to see it. All I'm telling you is what he told me and what Milo wrote about in the book. And as far as Milo's partner in the book, she re-released it with Family Secrets in it now. And it's the 2nd edition or 3rd edition, whatever. And when I tried to contact her about it, she said she knew everything about Milo. She knew everything that he did. She was his partner when he was a PI, and she was his co-author in the book. So she said, I've never heard of you. I don't know anything about you, and I don't want to talk to you.
What's her name?
Said, okay.
What's her name? Maybe I'll try and get an interview with her.
It's on the book, and I'm looking for the book right now while I'm talking to you, and I can't see it.
All right, we'll talk off the air. I'll send you an email.
Now, if you look it up on Amazon or whatever, it's there. It's called Crypt CRYPT 33. There's been a lot of books written about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, I know.
But,
let me ask you a question now.
It's Crypt 33, and her name, I don't remember her name at the moment. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Would Frank Schweiss and Tony Spilaccio, if they went out there to do this, would they have connections there in California with local California cops or even CIA guys and stuff like that for help?
Actually, at the time out there, they did have connections with different people, but I have this is just a guess on my part or a theory, that they knew somebody was going to be dispatched to do it. What a lot of people don't understand is her phones were tapped by everybody. I mean, the FBI, the CIA, everybody had her phones tapped because she had been sleeping with Kennedy, both the Kennedy brothers, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And they refused to take her calls at the White House, and she said she called her publicist and said that she wanted to hold a press conference. And they heard that on the wiretap. So it was like, jump to and let's go. Yeah. I mean, somebody contacted them, and they wanted the mob to do it.
As a matter of fact, I think there's an anecdotal story about the guy who was doing the wiretaps. He was doing it for the mob. He was doing it for Giancana, but at the same time was the same guy hired by either the Kennedys or the FBI to put in the taps. So the same guy was selling the taps to two different people. You know, he was working for two different sources.
Well, so, when you got there, you found out that there was like Hoover had him wiretapped. Hoover had her wiretapped. I mean, he had to know. If you talked to the guy, he had to know all the different wiretaps that were there.
So, Red, we're running out of time.
But
okay.
When she said she was going to go public, I think that's what emanated it. You know, right there. That said she knew too much about Sam and everybody else. They just had and the Kennedys.
Yeah, and we can't forget
too.
She was brutally raped up there too at Cal Nav, the casino owned by Frank Sinatra. There's like the weekend right before all this. So she was.
I was told, and I was told by several different people that she was in a room crying,
right,
and at Cal Nav, and that Sam Giancana went in there and talked to her. But that's all I was told. That's all I was told.
Okay, so Red Wemette is the author of the book. Nobody Cares and What I Did About It. Red, we got a couple of seconds left. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything I didn't ask you about this story that you think you could fill in? I would think we covered it all.
I don't know, Ed. This is a happy 4th of July, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Has a good day today, our independence. And I don't know what to leave you with. If anybody's interested in buying my book, I'd like to plug it because I think they can learn something from it.
Yeah, and we have a link to
as I saw things through my eyes, not through someone else's.
Yeah,
Did you read it, Ed?
No, I never had a chance. You were supposed to send me one. You never did. But we have a copy. We have a link to the book on the Opperman Report blogspot.com and also in the OppermanReport.com bookstore. So you can always go there and check out the book. Hey, Frank, I keep calling you Frank now. You got Frank in my head. I called you Frank.
You've been interviewing Frank Collada.
I know. No, Frank Weiss, Frank Collada, Frank Sinatra. You know, anyway, Red, thank you so much, my friend.
Franks.
Have a good day, my friend.
Okay, God bless.
Good night. They had Red Wemette, okay? It was a new story version on the Marylin Monroe murder. If you like these shows, okay, you can always go to OppermanReport.com, become a member, okay? More compliments about what we have in the members section every day. A lot of great new content in there. We're going to have coming up, too, I'm going to be taping Saturday afternoon with Reverend Ed Pinkney, his story about his experiences being wrongly convicted, the time he spent in horrible prison conditions, and now he's free. He's out walking around, and we're going to get him on the show here to welcome him back. So thank you all so much for listening to the show. Good night.
Get ready for the tastiest breakfast under the sun. Jimmy Dean Casserole Bites. All the homemade flavors of a breakfast casserole, packed into a poppable bite.
You know something else? They taste good.
So you're a small business, or a big one. You were thriving, but then, you encountered an obstacle. So how do you bounce back? You don't. You bounce forward with Comcast Business and powerful connectivity. Get serious internet that lets you go bigger, go better, all powered by the nation's largest gig speed network, which lets you bring the bandwidth from HQ to your home office and helps keep your connected devices secure. Be fast, be flexible, be ready for what's next, and bounce forward. Go to ComcastBusiness.com to learn more.
Socks are the #1 most requested item at homeless shelters. Underwear second, and shirts are third. At Bombas, socks were first, made with comfortable details for everyday wearing. Then underwear, and shirts too, all designed to perfectly fit. At Bombas, every item you purchase means you're donating an essential clothing item to someone in need. One comfortable clothing item for you, one donated to someone in need. Bombas, comfort for all. Get 20% off your purchase at bombas.com/comfy.
Now is the best time to start working at Amazon. They are offering sign-on bonuses up to $3,000 and hourly pay up to $22 per hour. You'll bring home a great weekly paycheck, and many jobs come with benefits that start on your first day. That's higher pay, sign-on bonuses, benefits day one. And you'll be part of a safe and inclusive workplace ranked among the best in the world. Go to amazon.com/apply to start your job search today. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer. Now is the best time to start working at Amazon. They are offering sign-on bonuses up to $3,000 and hourly pay up to $22 per hour. You'll bring home a great weekly paycheck, and many jobs come with benefits that start on your first day. That's higher pay, sign-on bonuses, benefits day one. And you'll be part of a safe and inclusive workplace ranked among the best in the world. Go to amazon.com/apply to start your job search today. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
Mail's here. It's 2 minutes later than yesterday. And because you know it's 6 minutes earlier than the day before, you decided it was time to get back to work. Let's job it up. At CareerBuilder, we're ready to help at every stage of your search. Build a resume, get industry tips and advice, and apply to multiple jobs in just one click. Get started now at CareerBuilder.com.